Hello, Shrishta. I will just wait for a couple of minutes to see if more people join, and then we will start with the live. And today's live is also a requested topic, which is attachment disorder. So let's just wait for some time and then we shall start. So I'll just wait for a couple of minutes before I start with the live on attachment disorder. Can you please confirm if I'm properly audible? Yeah. So, Shrishta, am I audible? Okay. All right. So I'll just wait for let's say 1 more minute, and then I'll start. It's 8:03. So let's just wait for 2 minutes, maybe. We'll just start after that. As it is, people watch the recording more than the live, so that's pretty much okay. Hi, thank you for joining. So we're just waiting for a minute, and then we will start with today's live, which is on attachment disorders. Something which starts during the childhood but continues to impact us even in our adulthood. So something which I found one of the common element of people who are facing trauma, and it is across age. Like a 21-year-old is also facing attachment disorder, whereas a 53-year-old is also facing attachment disorder. And it is because of this kind of attachment disorder, people tend to stick to many toxic relationships. People tend to get stuck in the spiral of reactive abuse. So that's why focusing on where it all starts from is very important. So without wasting any further time, let's first focus on what is attachment. As we know that attachment is a feeling of closeness or security and emotional bond that you feel with someone. So basically, if you have somebody in your life, whoever it is, you feel very emotionally connected to that person, you feel very secure, you feel very close. That means you are attached to that particular person. Now this attachment is not based on any kind of financial or any other sections of or any other aspects. It's primarily emotional aspect. So if I really have to define attachment, I have just noted down a couple of lines from a very famous British psychiatrist whose name is Jeremy Holmes, and the person suggested a person's attachment status is a fundamental determinant of their relationships, and this is reflected in the way they feel about themselves and others. Neurotic patterns can be seen as originating here because their core attachments are problematic. They will have a powerful influence on the people, on the way someone sees the world and their behavior. Where there is a secure state in the childhood, a person feels good about themselves and their capacity to be effective and pursue their projects. Where the core state is insecure, defensive strategies comes into play. So if I have to simplify, although it was very self-explanatory, but if I have to really simplify this statement made by Jeremy Holmes, a famous British psychiatrist, it is Attachment, how do you view yourself, how do you view your relationship with others, that is primarily dependent on your initial attachment with the primary caregivers, that your mother, father, or anybody else who had raised you during your childhood. So the thing is, if somebody is going through a very secured attachment during childhood, it really helps them to form secured attachment with people. They have a very good sense of being for about themselves, good sense of belief about others, about the world. But if they have born and brought up in an environment where they are constantly misjudged, constantly they had to prove themselves, constantly there was like a chaotic environment where they felt unloved, where when they were looking for security they've met insecurity, all those characteristic traits gets into that person, and the view the person have for themselves as well as others, that tends to get a little bit haphazard, and that tends to impact your future relationships. So the fact is, it is very easy to procreate, it is very easy to give birth to somebody, but it is a very challenging job to parent a child, because parenting is it's like more like a life project of 20-25 years. And people think that even though there are some whatever has happened, probably at least the person would have a good life, but they forget that the foundational years are the most important years in a child's life, because those foundational years inculcates the core values in the child, and the way they look at themselves, the way they look at others, the core values that develops in that person, that the experience the person have of the childhood, that has a tremendous impact on the later relationships that the child develops with other people. Okay, because we know that each mother or father, whoever it is, or any other caregiver, they become the role model for the child. So the kind of relationship, the kind of environment, and the kind of security that the child has been born and brought up, that determines whether you have a secured attachment or you will have a attachment disorder. So if we have to first understand how this attachment develops. So in the very beginning, if you see that 0 to 6 weeks maybe, you will see that that particular time, it is called the asocial stage. Asocial stage is you make some kind of stimuli in front of the child will respond. You laugh, the child will laugh. So some kind of you make some sound, the child will kind of move their head. So it is like a social, no such connection, but basically they are responding to the various stimulus. Next is 7 to 9 months, 6 weeks to 7 months. 6 weeks to 7 months is called the indiscriminate attachment pattern. Now what is this indiscriminate attachment? When the child starts enjoying the human company. So first was the asocial, which is 0 months to 6 weeks. The second one was 6 weeks to 7 months, which is the indiscriminate attachment, where the child starts enjoying human company. The third one, or the third kind of attachment that develops in the child, that is called the specific attachment, which is 7 to 9 months. These 2 months, the child starts forming attachment with a specific attachment figure. It can be mother, it can be father, whoever is responding, whoever is available for the child when the child is looking for security. So the child starts developing that secured attachment. Then comes the multiple attachment, like 10 months and onwards. Slowly and steadily the child starts attaching themselves or creating bonds with different people, and they can have multiple attachment. Now the fact is, this attachment that we are talking about, this becomes the prototype for all future relationships. In fact, if it does not develop during the crucial period of childhood, the person tends to have very difficult relationship. They tend to replay difficult relationships in their life, and that is one of the major cause behind childhood trauma. So if I have to talk about attachment trauma, which is the main topic, I was giving all this explanation because it is important to understand from where the attachment disorder starts. So if I really need to talk about what is attachment trauma, it is an early form of relational trauma, occurs when there is some disruption in the healthy bond formation between the baby and the child and the primary caregiver. So whenever there is some issues between the child and the primary caregiver, that's when attachment trauma starts developing. For example, the child is looking for food, the child is constantly crying and nobody is there. So slowly and steadily this attachment trauma starts developing. You might feel that, oh, how will the child even understand? But these are like the values, these are some of the things that tends to develop slowly and steadily inside the child. The consequences of attachment trauma is actually far-fetching. It is not only limited to childhood, but it is limited to various other developmental stages of the human being. When you have a positive caregiver, when you have a positive relationship with the caregiver, then the child develops, you will see the child is very happy, the child has a pattern of developing relationship, the child can go to somebody else very easily. So these things happen. But when there is an insecurity, when this attachment trauma develops, you will see that the child, the behavior of the child, the personality of the child is also changing with every passing day. So based on these attachment that the child develops during the first 10 months of their life, and they continue to develop based on that, till teenage rather, a person can develop 4 kinds of attachment pattern, and the first one is the ideal one, which is called the secured attachment pattern. About 60% of people develop secured attachment pattern, which is a very good number. You might sorry, a call came in, so the live just got paused. So yes, so I was talking about secured attachment pattern is like 60% of the children grows with secured attachment pattern. Now you might be thinking secured attachment is 60% is a great number, but also think 40% of the children grows without secured attachment pattern, and these 40% falls under the attachment disorders. So what are the various attachment disorders we can have? One can be avoidant attachment disorder. What is an avoidant attachment disorder? So in case these children are those when they were very distressed, when they were looking for a primary caregiver, when they were very young, or when they were looking for some kind of assistance from their caregivers like mother, father, or anybody for that matter, they were not available. So they had to go through it alone. So later these children also become emotionally unavailable. So you will to understand the kind of emotion the child experienced from their caregivers at the very beginning of their life, that is one of the major reason behind what kind of attachment pattern the person would actually develop in their later part of the life. So avoidant attachment pattern are those who did not get emotional availability from their caregivers when they were in distress. So later on they grow up as adults who are emotionally unavailable and non-expressive in their relationships also. This third type of, so this is one of the 40% category. The third one is called the resistant attachment pattern. Resistant attachment pattern, what is this? In this case, the children had inconsistent caregivers or unpredictable caregivers, so sometimes they are available, sometimes they are not available, sometimes there is love, sometimes they were beaten black and blue, so nobody knew. So they used to wake up with no extreme unpredictable environment. They didn't know what to expect, whether they will be expecting love, whether they were expecting hatred. They really don't know what to expect over here. So these people, when they develop attachment pattern, it is full of insecurity. These people develop insecurities in relationships. They can also appear clingy. The moment they find ye mil gaya, ye acha hai, so they start to cling to this person because they don't want to leave them, because they have developed so much of insecurities in their relationships, and they're constantly looking for assurance whether they're doing it right, whether they are doing the right thing, correct thing. So because of this inconsistent caregiver which they had, these people become resistant in their attachment pattern, and they become very insecure. They become clingy, they cannot give space to people, and often they are constantly looking for assurance, and you will feel that this person lacks in confidence, but it is really not confidence. It is more of insecurities that had stemmed in when they were children, when they were young, and they developed this kind of an attachment pattern. So we had secured attachment pattern, we have avoidant attachment pattern, and resistant attachment pattern. The fourth one, which belongs to the 40% of attachment disorder, are the disorganized attachment pattern. Now, what are disorganized attachment pattern? This develops in presence of frightening caregivers. Frightening caregivers as in extremely poor caregivers, and forming tumultuous relationship, very, it's a very how should I explain this? uh, you do not feel happy, you feel, even as a child you want to die. So this kind of a caregiver, very very bad relationship, maybe unwanted child, maybe issues between the parents because of which the entire burden was falling on the child, many other reasons, maybe, there can be 1,001 other reasons. Disorganized, this kind of people, when they grow up as an adult, so just imagine they are actually becoming not only frightening partners, they are also becoming extremely reactive abusers. They also become you know they don't want to give up on you, but they will not also give you space in the relationship. They will display some bit of narcissism, will also display some bit of toxic attributes in their relationship. So these are the four main criteria or categories of attachment patterns. So the first one is the ideal one, which is 60%. But the remaining three, I think, by as I'm saying this thing, I could recall so many names of my patients who falls under these three categories. So 40% of children who are born, they are born with and they are raised with attachment disorders. And when they grow up and when they are getting into relationship, they are practicing the same relationship model which they have grown up, which they have seen in front of their eyes. So while it is, as I was saying, while it is easy to give birth, but it is a very difficult job to parent a child. And that's why it is very important that the role model that you are portraying in front of the child, the way you are treating them, you're not only paving the way for how the relationship is going to be between you and the child, but you're also paving the way between how the relationship is going to be between the child and their future partner or even future relationship. So it's a very very difficult job. And attachment disorders is not something which ends in childhood, it starts in childhood. And all the cases that I was talking about are all from 21 to 53. So you can imagine something which started in childhood continues to impact these people throughout their lifetime. So now you might ask me that how can we get over this particular attachment disorder? Is it solvable? The answer is yes, it is solvable, but it takes a huge effort. It is not that I can give you one medicine, ja betta ja, kal se koi attachment disorder nahi hoga. No, it doesn't work like that. It takes a huge amount of effort. The very first impact is you need to understand where it is stemming from. So going deep rooted into the childhood through various techniques, like you have hypnotherapy, you have talking, cognitive behavior therapy. You constantly understand the kind of relationships you had, all the primary relationships, and we try to observe what is the pattern that you replayed in all your relationships. So these people tend to have unsuccessful relationships also. So you need to find out what are the patterns, and through these patterns you will be able to identify, does it relate to anything with your childhood? Are you replaying any role model that you have seen in front of you? Then you start seeing that there is a connection between the attachment pattern that you were subjected to and the one that you are replaying now. So once you understand the patterns, the next step is resolving the trauma. So the first step is acknowledging you have an issue. Instead of blaming on others, it is acknowledging I have an issue. The second thing is acknowledging or identifying the patterns of relationship or the attachment patterns that we are creating. Third is resolving that trauma, resolving the attachment trauma or the childhood trauma that is there inside you. There are various techniques to do that, and slowly and steadily you will see. It takes, if you ask me how long does it take, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, but it resolves for good. And if you really want to have a very fruitful life, you have to give yourself that much of time to heal, to go through all those problematic concepts and patterns that you are replaying in your relationships. Next is talking to the inner child, because the child who is wounded, that child has grown up as an adult and practicing the wound in their other relationship. So the first step to resolve this is to go back to that child and talk to them and get that sorted first, so that you stop replaying these things. So you can understand, you have to go back and talk to yourself as a young version of you, and then slowly and steadily this thing starts getting resolved. Apart from this, there are other techniques, of course, which are used along to help you in this particular journey, which is meditation, yoga, music therapy, journal writing, thought diary, value exercise, and sometimes if it's between the couple therapy is also important, because you might see that one person in the couple is practicing resistant attachment pattern, the other person is practicing avoidant attachment pattern. Clash is bound to happen because both of them had difficult childhood and both of them are replaying from what they had experienced. So talking, understanding, realizing why I am behaving, because every behavior has a cause, and then trying to identify the pattern and then breaking the pattern through various means is the only way of solving attachment disorders. So that's all I had for all of you. So if you see anybody who's replaying attachment disorder, the best way of doing it is, have them go through this life. First of all, let them try to figure out what was it, and then slowly and steadily see if they can resolve it themselves, which is pretty difficult though. Otherwise, take a help from a professional and get that solved, because otherwise you will never be able to have a very peaceful relationship. It will continue to showcase the past into your current relationships. All right, so that's pretty much about it. I hope that this live was helpful to all of you. Take care everyone, and be safe, and we'll come back with the next live next week. Thank you so much everyone.